Squadron, thanks for coming out yet again to another installment of the Volvo 240 LS swap. We got a Volvo wagon here, 240 wagon, and I'm sitting in an empty engine bay with empty motor mount holes, and we're looking at a running and driving drivetrain back there. So next step here we got is jumping right into it. We got the STS machining motor mounts for the LS motor. It'll drop right into the stock holes here, like that. And I'm gonna do it without. There we go. And right side. And then it's got some lock nuts. Okay, well, my video cut off before, but I got my engine all prepped to install. I just got the headers temporarily bolted on so that I can strap it up here. And I got the motor mounts put on the block here, up underneath, and I got the motor mounts put on the car. And it got dark on me, so I'll be coming back tomorrow, try to get this thing bolted in, start sorting through the harness and stuff. Alright, Squadron, so let's get you updated with the 240 LS swap here. First of all, we'll go and check in on the 850R. It's been sitting over here in the field, just kind of hibernating for winter. I take it out every once in a while, just take a first spin around the block, but basically it's just kind of sitting here until next year comes around. So we got that thing sitting down there. And then we got the 240 wagon, new to the family just this year. I came into possession of this car through a Volvo mechanic friend of mine, and I was doing some work on his house, and he said he had a 240 that needed a lot of work if I was looking for a project. At first I said no, and then I was kind of thinking about how I wanted to do an LS swap, and I had already helped my buddy Bobby do 2 LS swaps and 2 of his Chevys. So they're pretty easy, and I was kind of already familiar with the engine and shit, so I bought this thing with the plans to LS swap it right out of the gate. Although it did have a running engine and transmission, I took that stuff out, and I got the LS mounted in here. So it's been mounted, and we got it on those STS mounts that you just buy right from STS Machining. I can give you guys a link if you're looking for some stuff. And last night I got the whole fuel system pretty much finished up, starting from this fuel rail up here in the front and going the whole way back with like flexible rubber lines and their push lock fittings. So I'll show you some of the fittings, and then I'll jump underneath here real quick and show you some of my fuel line routing. But basically we're like right into the Volvo sending unit, and all the Volvo lines are like, or the Volvo sending unit looks like it's going to work with our new lines. I got my send labeled and my return labeled there. So I thought my LS motor was a return fuel line based engine, but it turns out that it was a single fuel line, and I wasn't really thinking about it, so I got the wrong fuel filter. But yeah, guys, there's going to be 2 different types of fuel systems on your LS. It'll either have a feed and a return, or just a feed, and this one here has just a feed. So I'll explain what that means here in a second. Alright, so coming from the engine here, up underneath the car, we have one fuel line, one feed, and this feed runs all the way back the frame rail with some of these clips I got from Amazon. They're just like some stainless steel fuel line clips, and they're rubberized, and got them in there with some self tappers. This fuel line just kind of mimics the original path of the old fuel line, and then my fuel filter is in the same location as the original. This is a Corvette style fuel filter, and this is where we incorporate the return back into the tank. This fuel filter has a fuel pressure regulator like incorporated into it, so there's a feed here on the outside and a return in the center, and then it feeds into the engine out the other side. So it's pretty simple, and I just got it pretty much bolted right into my factory location.
And then these two lines take a trip up and over the axle like the original one did, and back into the sending unit area right there. So the fuel system on this is pretty straightforward, and you're just gonna pretty much like copy the original Volvo fuel system. Sorry for the shaky camera, but yeah, it's pretty easy to run this fuel system. This car is pretty rusty. Let me give you a little view of the rust. I put the jack up underneath this thing, and it was just like jacking up a sponge. So there's not much to save on this car here. It's gonna be going to the junkyard when I'm done with it, no doubt. Like all of them do. So here's the sending unit and the fuel pump setup. I got the fuel pump attached to the old fuel pump cradle or whatever this thing's called, and I just split it in half with like a Dremel so that it'll be wide enough to accept this new fuel pump. And then here's the old little Volvo pump next to it. It's like way smaller. Got some 5/16 Gates submersible fuel line because I had this old bellows fuel line in there, and I got some advice. It said don't even try to use this shit because it's just gonna expand. So I got the Gates stuff in there. I'm ready to reinstall this thing back in the tank. And then this is what the fuel line fittings look like. They just stab into the rubber hose here. They're just push lock fittings, and then you hit it with a hose clamp. And then this is a 10AN aluminum on the other side here. So got that kit on eBay. It was pretty cheap. I'm gonna reinstall this, and then get on to some exhaust manifold fabrication. So here's what I'm working with. This is probably about 2 3/4 inch hole, and I have to try to fit that whole assembly down through it with this float ball and everything else. It's probably about 25 degrees here in Pittsburgh, 2 days before Christmas. Got this bright ass light going, and there's my fuel that's evaporating and fitting enough. I had this over top of it. Some premium gourmet shit. I can kind of record the last part of the install here. This goes for any kind of 240 sending unit. I mean, this isn't really LS swap specific, but I've always been just flipping this float ball up for the whole time. I'm just like stabbing it down in there and like wrenching it around, and I keep this float ball up in the air the whole time. This is like still kind of loose here, and for the last part you just kind of like bend this thing, or it's not really bending it because this arm's kind of this pretty stiff arm. It's not going to bend, but you just kind of force it down in there for the last part, and that's it, man. You just got to make sure the return and the sending unit, or I mean the return and the feed, are pointing in the original direction, because there's like a basket down inside there. So make sure they still point off in that like 45-degree angle, like towards that upper left bolt, I guess you would say. And just pop it down in there. Let's see if I can do this here. Yeah, just kind of squeeze it towards the center and drop it in. That's it. That'll go down in, and you'll use your ring here. I've never used one of these Volvo tools. Let me see if I can find this ring. Oh, duh. I've never used one of the installation tools to take this off or put it on. I just use a long screwdriver and a hammer. Here's my installation kit right there, and I'll just put that back on there.